What's up, everybody? My name's Dan Kornhauser,
I am Bobby Hunt.
and thank you guys for tuning in for yet another adventure into the world of sports with Bob and I as your guides. And I know we're doing the shows a little less frequently, but don't you worry, we still have a lot of shit to catch up on, of course. And we'll be touching on a few different sports today, and I'm excited to see what direction this show goes in. I'm not gonna lie.
There's a lot of stuff to touch on. It's been a few weeks, and we're barreling all the way down toward football soon. But before we do that, we're going to definitely discuss some basketball and baseball in this podcast. We're
Ah,
going to touch on some football, albeit not the pros, and then maybe sprinkle in some hockey if we get to it.
sprinkle that shit in.
Yeah, a little salt bay.
Sprinkle it in. But okay, so Bob mentioned basketball, and they're in the playoffs, and things are going on there. Boston just went up 3-0 on the 76ers, and the Lakers and Blazers are getting ready for their next game, and it's exciting times for those teams and their fans. And then on the flip side, there's the rest of us, whose teams are not in the playoffs, and whose teams suck balls. And for Bob and I, our team is the Knicks, as I'm sure you guys have known by now if you've been tuning into us and you're watching our podcasts and listening to us in the past. And, well, yeah. The NBA lottery just happened. And for the millionth consecutive season, the New York Knicks not only didn't get the first pick, but they moved down than their original slotted pick that they were going to get, projected, of course, going into the lottery. Bob, what the fuck happened?
Well, at least this year, as opposed to last year, no Knicks fan was really holding out hope that they'd get number one. Part of that's
No.
also because they didn't have the worst record. Last year, they tanked. They had the
Mm-hmm.
best odds. Now, granted, last year it didn't help that that was the first year where the odds were flattened, where the top three teams, top three teams for the lottery with the odds, which really are the three worst teams, all had the same percentage. They all had a 14% chance of getting the number one pick. And last year we saw that the Knicks got completely screwed and didn't even wind up with, say, the second pick, which would have been Ja Morant. No, instead it wound up going to the seventh and eighth worst teams from last year, which were the Pelicans and the Grizzlies, respectively. So they got Zion Williamson and Ja Morant. And while I do still like RJ Barrett, at no point did I ever think he'd be a superstar. I still hold out hope that he can be a star, but he's not Zion and he's not Ja Morant. So that's already an L that the Knicks took. And even yesterday, with them having the sixth best odds, I don't know any Knicks fans that were expecting number one or even to move up that far. And that was fine. I didn't expect it. I just wanted to at least stay at six. I was thinking they would wind up seventh. And no, of course, it had to be even worse than that. They moved down two spots, down to the eighth spot. And once again, they are the punchline. They're the team getting joked about. And I feel like I'm a Mets fan. In the same area, you have the Mets, who are constantly joked about and ridiculed for all the crazy things that happen with them, whether it's injuries or guys doing stupid shit. And we'll definitely get to them later. I mean, not that they're doing anything stupid. COVID happens, but that's another story for later in this podcast. But the Knicks, again, clowns of the league. Can't even get it right. Can't even wind up sixth. I don't think they moved up in the lottery since Patrick Ewing, since 35 years ago. They always seem to either stay in the same spot or slide down in the draft lottery. And they moved down two spots. The Bulls jumped them. The Hornets jumped them. They get into the top four. And especially in a weak draft, it really hurts because I think those two spots are big. Now, yeah, I don't, in that range, even at six, it's not like they were going to have, say, James Wiseman, LaMelo Ball, or Anthony Edwards, the top three prospects in this draft fall to them. But they still would have been in a better spot. Yeah, pineapples, exactly. Dan's holding up a pineapple right now. Right now I have it on speaker view. So if you want to say something, so it shows your little pineapple there. But yeah, it's hitting.
Hi.
Yeah, there's the pineapple, everyone. The little mascot for our show. Just tell you how much we hate it and we're disgusted. It's every
Yeah.
year. Last year, I was confused. Dan was more pessimistic than me. I was optimistic. I didn't necessarily think we'd get the number one, but I was like, all right, maybe we'll at least get number two. Didn't happen, as I already said. And it just continues. The hits keep coming for the Knicks. I don't see. I hope that things can turn out right, but I definitely don't think they will. And to no fault of say Tom Thibodeau, even in the last podcast we did 2 weeks ago, I said I think Tom Thibodeau is a decent hire. I wouldn't have. He wouldn't have been my number one choice, but he probably would have been my number two or number three. But he's going to be probably gone in 3 or 4 years because the front office won't get it right, and it really starts from the top down because you look at almost every team in organized sports, especially here in the U.S., that has a terrible owner. They don't win shit very often. It never happens. Bad ownership, it trickles down as it does in companies, in business. And so I just don't think the Knicks are going anywhere with James Dolan. Leon Rose, I mean, I'll still hold out hope. I'm still a Knicks fan. I'm not going to give up. I'm still going to
No.
watch games. I'm still going to be a Knicks fan. But there's no reason for any hope. Every year we just get disappointment after disappointment.
And that's what we've become accustomed to, as you just said. I mean, I don't want to say it was fixed, but every year the NBA draft happens, I keep finding it more difficult to say that, oh yeah, the lottery's legitimate. It's just the bounce of the balls. It's just what happens. Yeah, teams get lucky, teams don't get lucky. But, that would ring a bit truer or more true. I don't know what the proper term is at this point, but it would sound a lot better if it were believable because I don't think it's necessarily a conspiracy against the Knicks per se at this point because it's not. Because the NBA would nothing but good things would happen for the NBA, both in this country and worldwide, if the Knicks were an elite championship contender. Nothing bad would happen. Only good things would happen from the Knicks being a legitimate title contender every year. So I don't think it's a conspiracy against the Knicks per se, but I do think there's a year, maybe not a yearly fix, but when they want certain like teams to get that pick or like certain storylines to follow through, they make it happen. Derrick Rose going to the Bulls. I mean, I know that year that they got the Derrick Rose pick, they weren't necessarily favorites to get the first overall pick. And the way the balls bounced that year, they just so happened to get the hometown kid who would carry them to relevance and literally just carry them to championship contender status and just revolutionize the Bulls again for the first time since Jordan left. But that all the years that the Cavs got the first pick after LeBron left, weird. How about last year? Oh, the Pelicans traded Anthony Davis going into the draft. Oh man, how are they gonna recover? Oh, I know. Let's give them the first overall pick. New Orleans, pretty nice market. Teams losing a superstar, going to
New Orleans,
LA.
what? New Orleans is one of the worst markets.
No. Okay, yes, but it's a big city is the point. It's a big city, and there's potential there. And so the superstar's leaving his team. He's going to LA. That's fine. We want that to happen. We want LA to be good. That's great. So he'll go to LA, but we wanna help him out. Let's throw him a bone. Let's give him the first overall fucking pick. That's cool.
So you think they're fixing it? You think that they're
I
actually
think year in and year out, you can point to something that says, or not, maybe not year in and year out, but most years you could point at something and say that this is nonsense, that the lottery fixes and it's bullshit. The lottery idea is good in theory, but I think they need to tweak it a bit. It's to the point where the worst teams are not getting the high picks. It's a lottery, I get it, but it's bullshit. It's exciting at times, but when your team is one of the worst every fucking season, you would like some reprieve. You would like some attention. You would like some of that luck. But The Knicks are just constantly unlucky. I know Greg always bitches about the Bulls. Oh, the Bulls having this, however many years in a row. No one gives a shit about Chicago. Y'all had your run with Michael. All right, get over it. Even with Derrick Rose, the Bulls were fucking right and very much relevant and very much in the conversation. The Knicks, what? Fucking 1 year, 5 years ago, the Knicks were relevant. Awesome. In between, though, around that one season where the Knicks were the 2 seed and Melo and Chandler and Amari led us to the playoffs and shit, that was all great, fine, and dandy. But there's 20, 25 years of misery around that one season. So I'm disgusted, to say the very fucking least. And I think the fix was in because you could go different. You could go, you could go a few different directions. You could say, well, you know what? They didn't really want to give Golden State the first overall pick, but they wanted to hook them up. Just because. Because no, hold on. Why? No, because they're already gonna be good. But you know what? They like that narrative of the Warriors being the villain. Everybody it's good for sports to have a team that's the villain. In baseball, it's the fucking Yankees. Now, it's the Astros. In football, it's the Patriots. In soccer, it's Barcelona and teams like that. Yeah, in NBA, it's the Golden State Warriors. Let's just be straight. For the last 4 years, when they ran the train on the league with Durant, Curry, and those superstars, everybody hated the Warriors except Warriors fans. So they were the villains of the league. So it's a nice narrative to have a villain. And it's nice for them because, hey, look at all these asshole teams in the top 8. Minnesota, Charlotte, Chicago, Cleveland, Atlanta, Detroit, New York. Fucking bussy. None of those teams, it doesn't matter if they got the first pick, or the second pick. None of those teams are a player or two away from contending. However, Golden State, with the second overall pick, we don't want to give them the first. That's too much. But the second overall pick looks really fucking pretty. They can add James Wiseman. They can add Anthony Edwards if they feel fucking squirrely. Or trade down. Or trade that pick entirely for another superstar. Bradley Beal. Who knows? Okay? But hey, they go back to being the villain. They're back to full health. They're going to add another superstar. They got all these superstars there already. Took the year off. Now they're back. It's perfect for business. It's perfect for the league. And then Minnesota at number 1. I think that was one of those. Like, in the league, the show The League, that fantasy football show that was on FXX. You know how Andre was the patsy? The draft order that they did when Ruxin won the league, and they did the drawing out of that Cobra box in the basement, and Ruxin didn't show up, and he showed up late, and they did the order, but they cheated. Ruxin actually got the first pick, and they cheated, and we're like, oh yeah, let's put Andre right behind him so he doesn't suspect anything. A fucking patsy. They did the opposite with the fucking Wolves. They said, you know what, we're going to put the Golden State Warriors number 2 because that's a wonderful position for them. They can really get some value for that pick or use it and get a young legend. But you know what? Let's put a fucking patsy. We don't want to put Cleveland there. They've already won the fucking number 1 pick 3 or 4 times. Atlanta, no one will really fucking buy it. New York, fuck them. You know what? Let's throw Minnesota in there. Karl Anthony Towns is threatening to leave. It's not good business for all the small market teams to suck. So let's throw these guys a bone. Let's fucking give these patsies just a little bit, something special, so their fans don't collectively jump off a bridge when Cat leaves town for a few first-round picks and some players, and they got to rebuild around fucking D'Angelo Russell. I think it's clear. I'm fucking disgusted. We can't get The Rock. We can't get anything. The life as a Knicks fan. It's just another day. #pineapples.
I like you. But you're crazy, to borrow a line from old school. I don't think there's any grand conspiracies now, or even when Patrick Ewing was the Knicks lottery pick in 1985, the whole freezing the envelope controversy. I don't think any of
Last time the league
I don't
gave
think
it to
that
the
shit.
Knicks.
Nah, that's bullshit.
Last
I don't
time they
buy
gave
any
it
of
to the
that.
Knicks.
It's a random lottery. The Knicks didn't have great odds this year, and it makes no sense that they'd want to give the fucking lottery last year to New Orleans and Memphis, two of the 5 lowest markets in all of NBA. They don't have big markets. No one cares about those teams. If Memphis made the finals this year, no one would watch. No one would care. Yeah, I mean, I might watch. Shit, you probably wouldn't even watch. I mean, I like Ja Morant, but it doesn't move the needle. No one cares about those small market teams. Shit, Milwaukee has one of the superstars in Giannis. They're also a very small market.
Yeah, but you can't make it obvious, Bob. You can't just say, let's give Golden State the top pick. Let's just give them the rock.
They had
can't make
the
it that
worst
obvious.
record in the NBA. They were 15 and 50.
Still, the worst team never wins the lottery, number one, or almost never. And number two,
but that goes
it's
against
Golden
what you said
State.
About Cleveland. Cleveland in 2013 had the worst record.
But they gave it
number one pick.
But they gave it to Cleveland every time LeBron left. And
so they got it with Kyrie and they got it with Anthony Bennett.
I mean, Bennett didn't do shit for him.
Yeah,
but they still got it. I would love the Knicks to get the fucking number one pick. Just once. Just one time. I haven't seen it since I've been born. And we've been butthole for the better part of 20 fucking years. I don't want to hear it. We've been one of the worst teams in the league. The only fucking shot we had was when we got Porzingis. We ended up 4th. We should have had a top 3 pick that year. We ended up 4th. Actually, probably should have had a top 2 pick. Ended up 4th.
Yeah, good thing they didn't, because they would have taken fucking Jahlil Okafor and been disgusted. At least they got Porzingis. If they weren't number one that year, Karl-Anthony Towns was the pick that year.
I want is a shot, Bob. Yes, in hindsight, in 2020 hindsight, yeah, you didn't want that Anthony Bennett first overall pick, and you didn't want, the Porzingis first overall pick that year, second overall pick that year, something after Cat. But I just want to get a shot. Give us a shot. If we're going to make a bad pick, we're going to make a bad pick. # Knicks problems.
I just don't think they're.
I just want to get a shot.
Period. I think it's random. Unfortunately, the Knicks just don't have any luck, and they haven't had any luck for 20 years. Not just in the lottery.
Anything.
We know it's been all around. They just have not had good luck at all. So yeah, the Warriors wind up number 2. It's perfect spot. I think they should take James Wiseman straight to the bank. They need a big man like that, a 7-footer. We know they have Steph, they have Clay, they have Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green. All 4 of those positions are solid. They could use a big man like Wiseman. Now, they could trade that pick definitely for another superstar. Wouldn't shock me at all. I just don't know who that would be. Bradley Beal is probably the most popular trade target, but I don't know how well he would necessarily fit with the Warriors.
Well, no, I just threw that name out because it's a big name.
I know.
It's, if anyone's going to trade for him, it's going to be someone with a high pick. And,
right.
So
Agreed,
and I don't know, the money may not even work out for Beal, but it was just a name I threw out just for shits and gigs.
But again, I don't think, Minnesota, that another really small market, not bottom 5, but definitely bottom 10 to 15. That's another team that hasn't done anything right for years. I don't see why they'd want to gift anything to the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I think it's random ultimately. Knicks just don't have any good luck, and the ping pong balls just haven't bounced their way for the longest time. And unfortunately, they're going to be picking 8th.
You know why it's the perfect crime, Bob? Because you're saying, I think it's just random.
Yeah, but you're saying that every year they're deciding who they want to
maybe not every
year.
Like
New Orleans and Cleveland and Minnesota.
Listen, maybe not every year, but I think there's definitely a majority of the years where there's like a certain narrative they want to portray or paint out or something like to play out that they fucking fix it. Come on. The Cavs getting LeBron. I mean, yeah, they might have been the worst team, but come on.
The only benefit
the Ohio boy going back to Ohio, fucking, it's
we all know in big business and with sports these days, it's all about the almighty dollar and the greed and the big bucks. Why the hell would they want Minnesota or New Orleans?
No, but that's the point.
Memphis
that's the point. But that's the point. You don't want to rob a bank.
They're not making money with those teams being good.
Wait. You don't want to rob a bank and then, when you're leaving the bank with the money and you're not going to be caught, you don't want to just raise your fucking mask and be like, hey, it was me, I did it, and this is where I'm going. No, it's the perfect crime for a reason. You want to throw people off. How better to throw people off than put some obscure market like fucking Minnesota with the top pick yet again? Does it matter that they win or lose? Absolutely not, like you said. However, it's too obvious to say, oh, well, Chicago won the lottery. Chicago's a huge fucking market. To have Chicago 1 and Golden State 2 would be way too obvious of a narrative that they're trying to push big markets. You don't want to put Cleveland anymore, like I said, because they've been there, done that. That's old. That's boring. Cleveland's fucking butt. They get the first pick. They can't fucking do nothing with it anyway. Let's mix it up a bit. Minnesota's the perfect scarlet letter. It's like, I don't even know if I'm using it right, but it's like the perfect thing to say, hey, we have a plan, but let's throw them off. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too much into it. But
they would want to line their pockets and have major markets like LA, Boston, New York involved. And that's not happening when you're having Minnesota number 1 and you're having Charlotte number 3. I just don't buy that. There's never been a shred of evidence that these have been fixed. It's fine to believe that. I know a lot of people feel that way. And hey, had the Knicks actually gotten number 1 this year, you know what people would have been saying? That it was fixed. Let's be honest.
And I would not have been saying that. I would have been saying
exactly.
that we got some luck finally for the first time in my lifetime. So that'd be awesome. But let's move on from the Knicks. I think we've given them their diligence.
Fuck the Knicks. I hate being a Knicks fan. It sucks.
Yeah,
it really sucks.
Let's move on for the Knicks. But is there anything NBA playoff related that we want to discuss real quick before moving on from basketball?
Well, nothing too shocking is going on. The only thing I'd mention is it was shocking that the 2 number 1 seeds lost their first game. Not so much the Lakers. I think the Blazers are going to give them a tough series. Ultimately, I think the Lakers will certainly move on. But the Bucks losing to Magic was surprising, but they came back and thrashed them yesterday.
Dominated.
And aside from that, I mean, everything's going to go according to plan for the most part. The Heat beating the Pacers is no kind of upset. That's a 4-5 matchup anyway. The Heat are up 2-0. And then you look at the Jazz today. They smacked the shit out of the Denver Nuggets, and they've won 2 games in a row now. So they're the 6th seed. The Nuggets are the 3 seed. Those are probably the only upsets you might see. Granted, it's still only a few games, and those teams could come back. But I certainly think we're going to see Lakers, Clippers, Bucks, Raptors all move on to the next round. As usual, the NBA is going to be very chalky with the playoffs. And, of course, we're going to talk more once we get further down the line. But as of right now, there's nothing extreme to talk about. Fortunately, no major injuries, really, of the teams that are still in it, which is good. Knock on wood. And, hey, Luka Doncic is playing tonight against the Clippers. He set the record for his first 2 games, the most points ever by a guy appearing in the playoffs, breaking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record of 69 points. He had 70 in his first 2 games, Luka did. And he's just unbelievable. He's going to be the future star of the league right after Giannis. It's going to be LeBron. Then once LeBron retires, Giannis, and maybe even Luka at the same time.
Maybe. We'll see. But let's move on from basketball then. Let's stay with current sports that are currently going on. But let's go with baseball. There's a lot going on in the world of baseball, particularly here in New York, where the New York Yankees have opened a new wing at Yankee Stadium. And, they have the Hall of Fame area, and they have, a few shops and the team store. And don't they have, some restaurant in there, some big restaurant?
Yeah, they have the Hard Rock.
Hard Rock Cafe. Yup, that's a thing that's open year-round, I would assume.
Yep. I don't know during COVID, but yes.
Right. In normal times, it would be open year-round, even though baseball's not happening at the stadium.
It is, but you know what I mean.
But the restaurant's open, even if baseball's not happening. Yeah. So it's got some attractions, but they've recently opened a new wing, which is pretty unexciting stuff, to be completely honest, as a Yankee fan. They've opened a new medical wing. For all the fucking injuries that they are dealing with. It's really disgusting. It's it's really played out at this point. Like, I get the Yankees have injury-prone players like Aaron Judge and Mike Stanton. I get it. I also get that it doesn't fucking matter what injuries the Yankees sustain because we're so deep, so talented, and Brian Cashman's so good at his job. But it's fucking annoying, man. And here we are, halfway through this shortened season, pretty much, or near almost. And the Yankees have what, 15 guys on the injured list? Something ridiculous.
It feels like it. They have at least 10 right now. But that makes me think, what bothers you more right now? The fact that Judge, Stanton, LeMahieu, Paxton, Torres, Severino, granted, we knew that coming into the year that he was going to be out for the year. Zach Britton. Does it bother you more that those guys are all injured right now, or the fact that the Rays just swept them at Yankee Stadium and have taken 6 of 7 from them so far in this season?
I'm more upset about the injuries because I already sung the Rays' praise in the preseason. Bob wasn't as sold, fucking disrespectful, actually, and which is fine because I was very disrespectful to the Rays last season. However, one of us learned our lesson, the other one did not. So where Bob was singing, I feel like Bob was singing their praises last season, going into last season, and I was shitting on him. We kind of flipped going into this season. And I'm not, I mean, I am upset that they can't beat the fucking Rays, especially at home. But the Rays are fucking good. I'm not confused. I wasn't concerned about it. I mean, I know their starting pitchers at the very top haven't been as good as they should. But if they're taking care of business in the division, that's really all that matters, I think. And it's upsetting, but they're a good team. If the fucking Yankees got swept by the fucking Red Sox or the Orioles, I'd be upset. And I would be like, yo, that's unacceptable. But to lose to a very good team and a potential World Series contender who's off the last couple of years have been legitimate contenders, it'll happen. But the injuries, really disgusting. You can't plan for injuries. You can't really prevent, per se, injuries like this happening. But LeMahieu, Judge, Paxton now, Gleyber Torres now, Zach Britton, Giancarlo Stanton, Severino. I mean, but that Severino was back in June. But, Severino, Canley back in early August. And even we're just talking about the stars. It's a lot of star power that the Yankees are missing out on, and a lot of quality starters the Yankees are missing out on. That if any other team in the league were missing this amount of talent, they would be completely fucking irrelevant, and it wouldn't even be close. But because the Yankees are the Yankees, the depth is right, the coaching is right, and maybe, I don't know, the luck is on their side. They're built to withstand these injuries. They did it last year. They'll do it again. They'll be fine. But the injuries suck, dude, and I'm getting really tired of them. And it mostly sucks because you can't do anything about it. You're not getting rid of LeMahieu. You're not like getting rid of Judge because he's injury prone. Judge is a legitimate 5-tool athlete. The guy he could be something special. We're talking about MVP caliber special when he's fully healthy.
Before he got hurt, he was certainly in that conversation.
Exactly.
He had the home run lead. He was tearing the cover off the ball. He was hitting
exactly.
100.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we got a legitimate American League MVP contender in Aaron Judge, one of the best, most talented players in baseball when healthy. Gleyber Torres, one of the best shortstops in baseball, one of the best infielders in baseball, young legend. I mean, LeMahieu, it's like Stanton. Like, I guess we're spoiled as Yankees fans because, like, we dealt with these injuries last year, and we were fine. Didn't skip a fucking beat. Won 100+ games. Was one of the best. We're one of the best teams in the American League. A legitimate World Series contender. Um, and we figured, oh, well, we got the depth and whatever, we'll be fine. Well, now it's going to be put to the test, and we'll see really how good that depth is. But it sucks, dude. You can't do anything about it, and it's happening to our stars.
Now, both bother me, of course, and the Yankees weren't at full strength for this Tampa Bay series, but it really does bother me that they've lost to Tampa, and they got doubled up in each game. Lost 6-3, 4-2, 10-5, and the bullpen didn't perform well for the Yankees, even their best pitchers, whether it was Britton before he got hurt or Adam Ottavino, and they just need to be better. I get it. Some of the guys that should be there weren't there, and that doesn't help, especially when you need timely hitting. But 6 of 7, and especially getting swept at the stadium, I know the fans aren't there, but that's a problem. And even though wasn't super high on the Rays, especially with the expanded playoffs, I definitely think the Rays will make it, and I did pick them when we did that episode a couple weeks ago. But they need to beat teams like the Rays. They're going to have to play teams like the Rays in the playoffs. Another team like the Athletics or the Astros are similar. They have very good pitching, starting and in the bullpen. These are teams they're going to have to beat when it comes to playoff time. And yes, with 8 teams in each league making the playoffs, it's not as important to win your division.
Exactly. Yeah.
You want to get in? Yes, I acknowledge that.
Yeah, that's the main reason why I wasn't concerned, because you get second place, you're in. That's all you need to do.
But at the same time, if I'm seeing them lose to them in the regular season, what makes me think that all of a sudden when it comes playoff time that these guys are going to show up and be big game players, or especially pitchers? I have no doubt about Cole. I don't worry about Garrett Cole. But especially say in a 3-game series, say they do play the Rays in round 1, and they didn't win the division, and it's in Tampa where they suck. The Yankees have not – it's been a house of horrors at Tropicana Field for the Yankees. What if they lose game 1, say Garrett Cole versus Blake Snell? That's a lot of pressure for whoever is healthy at the time, whether it's Masahiro Tanaka being the number 2 starter or James Paxton being the number 2 starter, whoever it may be. They would have to win 2 games in a row, have to. And that just concerns me, because seeing them lose in the regular season, it doesn't make me feel good about what's going to happen in the playoffs. Yeah, sure, they can beat up on butthole teams like the Baltimore Orioles or the Boston Red Sox, or even the teams in the NL East like Atlanta and Philly. But whoop-de-friggin' do. When it comes to the Rays, Athletics, Astros, I have a lot of doubts right now about what they're going to be able to do when it becomes postseason time.
Which is fair. It's definitely a fair thing to bring up. But hopefully by then, the reason I'm not as concerned about that is A, like I said, the Rays are good. B, the Yankees are dealing with a slew of injuries. C, even if the Yankees don't win the division, the rest of the division is fucking ass. The Red Sox suck. Orioles suck. And Toronto is just really inconsistent. So I'm not really concerned about the rest of the division. We're making the playoffs unless the season gets canceled or everyone dies.
Right.
So,
and let's just state this. Also, we're bitching being Knicks fans. Relax. We're not all, jumping off our balconies right now. We understand the Yankees are still very good, better than a lot of teams. We still think they'll make the playoffs. No doubt about it. But there is cause for concern, because this was a heavy favorite. After the Dodgers, the Yankees were one of the prohibitive favorites to potentially make the World Series and certainly to possibly win the American League. The only positives that can come out of it in this moment right now is to see what they have in that alternate site, essentially their minor league type players. Maybe Clark Schmidt gets promoted now with these injuries to some of their pitchers. Maybe we see Davy Garcia get a shot. They really don't have a lot of young position players down there that are really going to get a new crack at it. You would figure they'll maybe bring back Miguel Andujar, who keeps seemingly getting shuttled back and forth between the big leagues and the alternate site. But that's the only positive right now. And the only other positive, I guess, is that these aren't long-term injuries. That's why I'm a little more concerned with them losing to the Rays like they have been, is because it's not like Judge, Stan, LeMahieu, Paxton are necessarily done for the year. I definitely thought with Paxton, I was saying to you yesterday, I'm scared it could be Tommy John. Fortunately, it seems like it's just a forearm flexor strain, albeit on his pitching arm. But it shouldn't be something that knocks him out for the year. And they need him. They need him to be big game James. They need him to be there for the postseason. I don't want to have to rely on Jordan Montgomery and certainly not Jay Happ or Jonathan Loizaga to pitch a postseason game. They need Paxton and they need Tanaka and they need Cole. Those three starters need to be available when it comes postseason time.
And then I was going to say, before you went into this, I was going to say, and finally, these aren't long-term injuries. So when it comes to playoff time, we just got to make the dance. If all these guys come back healthy, there's no one who's better in baseball than the New York Yankees. And I'm including the fucking Dodgers. And I don't give a shit. I said what I said.
All right. Well, you're still pretty confident. And
I said what I said.
The Dodgers to win the World Series.
I did.
Yankees, so.
I did pick the Dodgers. I'm not a complete homer like fucking Greg. But I will give credit where credit's due, okay? And what can I say? The Yankees impressed me. But you mentioned you had finished off talking about pitching staffs being not quite fucking right. Well, let's stick with that thought, and let's stay in New York and let's stay in baseball. Let's just go to Queens, and let's talk about the New York Mets for a hot second, because they're also dealing with their fair share of injuries now. Whereas the Yankees have, I think, 11 total guys on the injured list right now, 7 I think of which are star regulars, or 6 of which are star regulars. The Mets aren't too far behind. Between August 20th and August 11th, the last 10 days, they've put 5 guys on the injured list. 3 of those guys are starting pitchers. Michael Wacha with a shoulder issue, David Peterson with an MRI on his left shoulder as well. And, of course, Marcus Stroman, who opted out after coming off the DL. He never pitched a single inning for this team this season after coming over via trade last season at the deadline. And he opted out after coming off the DL. So tack that on top of Noah Syndergaard, and you have Jacob deGrom, Dan Kornhauser, Bobby Hunt, Greg Gillert, and our little pineapple mascot right here as the 2, 3, 4, 5 starting pitchers. So that's their starting pitching staff right now for the Mets. I mean, I'm thrilled to get this opportunity to pitch for a franchise as storied as the New York Mets. But spoiler alert, I suck. So the Mets are in trouble, at the very least, when it comes to their starting rotation. It's been nice to see Dom Smith come out and do his thing. And they've got some pieces around there, but it's a tough times to be a Mets fan as well.
Plus, we throw in the fact that they tested positive for COVID yesterday. One player.
Whole team has AIDS. That's what happens.
One player, one coach tested positive for COVID. Honestly, looking at it from a sports perspective, and I've said this a few times in some of our podcasts, it's actually maybe the best thing that could have happened for both the Yankees and the Mets. Both teams are reeling with injuries. Especially for the Yankees coming off a sweep. It's not like they had they were riding a hot streak and they had a lot of momentum going. So it might be a good thing that they get a few days off to recollect themselves and get back in shape. Mm-hmm. And for the Mets, mainly because of injuries, they started hitting better, and it is bad for them in that sense, especially in Miami. They started to seemingly turn things around, and their bats had been getting going in the past week. But even prior to that, they had injuries to their hitters. Robinson Cano had just come back from his IL stint. Jeff McNeil got hurt. They've had injuries in their field too. They've had problems as well. And honestly, it might be the best thing that happened to both of them for right now. Now, you hope that the player and the coach are all that it is. I hope there's no other positive tests for the team, and maybe they can start playing, say, on Monday. I think they both have an off day. I know the Yankees do. But basically, this entire Subway Series that was supposed to happen this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, has been postponed due to those positive tests on the Mets. And yeah, the pitching is a big problem. That's really the bigger problem for the Mets, because the hitting had started to come around, and even with some players missing in their lineup, they had been doing pretty well. But after deGrom, and even he had his own injury scare, he got scratched from the start. He had some blister problems, some neck stiffness. Ultimately, he only missed one start, and he was able to pitch the other night. But yeah, David Peterson, the rookie, had been their best pitcher. Now he's on the IL. Michael Wacha had done pretty decently in his first few starts, but he's been injured for the last 2 weeks or so. You mentioned Syndergaard's been out for the entire year because of Tommy John. Rick Porcello's been asshole for the most part. He's only had maybe like 1 or 2 decent starts. You hope he can turn it around if you're a Mets fan. But as of right now,
Turn around.
right now for both teams, I think not playing these games actually is probably a good thing. Get a few days rest. Maybe that'll help heal some wounds, lick their wounds, and get back to it on maybe Monday or Tuesday if, knock on wood, those other tests come back negative.
In the era of Corona, nothing is certain. You just got to hope you do the right things enough. Everybody stays healthy around you. And that's all you can really hope for at this point. But let's shift gears real quick. Let's get off the Mets for a hot second. Let's get off of baseball for a hot second. And you mentioned licking their wounds with the Mets, and at least when it comes to licking their wounds, the Mets aren't the only ones doing that. The world of college football is licking its wounds currently. College football as we know it is dead. At least, at least during the era of Corona, college football as we know it is dead. Once Corona gets under control and people stop spreading the disease and large gatherings can start coming back together and things like that, things are going to be a bit different. And college football, along with a lot of other things in our lives, have not been spared from the COVID-19 wrath. And the Big Ten has canceled their season. All Big Ten schools will not be playing football in the fall as of now. The Pac-12 has done the exact same thing. And I think the Mountain West has done the same shit. I don't know if I'm wrong. Bob, feel free to correct me on that. But I know the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are 2 of the Power 5 conferences that have canceled their seasons thus far. The SEC and the ACC seem pretty gung-ho to move forward. And Notre Dame started classes and stuff like that, but they had to shut that shit down. Their campus had a shit ton of new cases and positive corona, COVID-19 cases come out since school reopened and people came back to campus, students came back to campus. So that brings into question where Notre Dame fits into all of this with their athletics and so on and so forth. We saw North Carolina shut shit down on their campus after a slew of new positive tests for COVID-19 on campus between staff and mostly students, which happens when the students, college kids, fucking teenagers or early 20s, left on their own for the first times in their lives, have a sense of freedom that they've never had before, which is wonderful to have. And they make college decisions to go to off-campus parties at frat houses, or hell, fuck it, on-campus parties in dormitories, and, have a good college time because you're young. You have a good immune system. No one has corona. So fuck it. Let's go to this party. Let's get wasted. Let's hang out with Brad and Chad and Becky and all these hoes and do something special. Let's do keg stands and play beer pong. Believe me when I tell you, I would love to do a keg stand and play some beer pong right now. That sounds amazing. And I'm fucking 30 plus. So when I think about like a 17-year-old freshman, 16, 17, 18-year-old freshman, sophomore in college, going back to school after several months of COVID lockdown, no parents, no bullshit, rules to socially distance yourself and wear masks. Fuck that noise. I'm gonna do what I want. Let's go to this party and get drunk. Let's make some terrible decisions. Let's get the same girl pregnant tonight. I'm
Yeah.
excited. Let's do it.
Ananas, where is it? Pineapples.
Let's do it.
Oh,
Let's do it. All right. Let's do something special.
not gonna lie, you had me in the first half, but you just lost me.
Let's steal a cop car. All right. Let's go to the Panda. Let's go to the.
What the fuck is this? Superbad?
Let's go to a zoo. Kidnap a panda. Just something special. Okay.
Oh man.
So the college kids did their college kid thing, and everybody got fucking COVID. So Notre Dame shut it down, North Carolina shut it down, and I'm sure other colleges around the country, despite me making jokes and having fun, they're going to shut shit down too when tests get too crazy for positive tests. So that's what we're dealing with in the college football world, Bob. Where do we go from here? What the fuck is happening, and how do you feel?
Hey,
as a Big Ten fan, because you're an Indiana alumni, so as someone from the Big Ten, how do you feel?
Well, before I get to that, I'm not always right, but with this, I hit it on the head because I was saying to you months ago, and not that you disagreed or anything, but I was saying college sports are the most fucked of all of them because even though they technically do have the resources, it's obviously a sham that we consider them student athletes. We know the football and basketball programs generate so much more money and revenue for these schools than any other part of what the schools do, without a doubt, of all the major schools, of course. I'm not talking about like the Ivy Leagues and whatnot. We're talking about the major D1 schools, particularly in the Power 5 conferences of the Big 12, the ACC, SEC, Big 12, and the Pac-12. Now, the Big 10 and the Pac-12 have both decided that they're not going to play football this fall, really any fall sports. And the other conferences that you were touching on before, yes, the Mountain West is one that already did that, and the MAC is the other one that did it even before them. So you already have 4 conferences that have decided that they're not going to play football this fall, and I don't think they're going to play any fall sports, period. Correct. And I get it because the whole thing was there's just too many people involved. See, even though, there's plenty of people in the other sports, we knew the NHL and the NBA were going to do a bubble. All right, that's well and good. You're going to have tons of testing. You're going to stay on a certain location. You're still going to have to hope that these guys follow all the protocols, but so far, so good. Baseball, we see some of just the problems they're having, and they have rosters of 30 or so players and roughly 5 to 10 coaches and training staff, probably a little more than that when you count like medical staff and doctors, training staff. But still, it's a reasonable amount of people, but they're mostly adults.
Right.
And even the NFL is even more dangerous just because the roster sizes in training camp. Most teams are going with 80. They didn't want to do the 90 because then they'd have to do like split squads.
Yep.
But still, that's a lot of people. But again, they're mostly adults. There's still some immature players, of course. They're young, plenty of young guys still.
Yeah.
But, they're making tons of money, and that's a big motivating factor as well. But you look at college kids. I mean, college sports, especially football, their rosters have 80 to 90 kids under scholarship. You have coaching staff.
Shit, 100 plus, bro. Sometimes.
You have like 20 to 25 coaches.
Special.
You have, and then obviously with the college camp, you have training staffs, of course, too. Then you have college campuses, and you have plenty of students all around. How are you going to keep
30,000 people on campus? 40,000.
Especially
people.
Me coming from Indiana, we have like 30,000 undergrad students. You add in the graduate students, and you're damn near like 40,000 going.
Fucking Ohio State, 50K light.
You have teachers, you have faculty, you have deans, and so many people just on campus, and them living in dorms away from their family. It's not like adult professional athletes where they're probably just going home to their apartment or their home, whether it's with a wife and kids or maybe they have a girlfriend or whatever. It's still just
some salute to come over.
When you look at college sports, it's just too many people involved, and I always thought college sports were doomed, particularly football, and I just don't see how they can really have a legitimate season. I wanted them to really come through with a plan, though. That's the problem that I have with, say, the Big Ten and Pac-12. Like, I'm not so much upset that they decided that it wasn't feasible, but it didn't seem like they really were deciding on a plan a couple months ago. It was more like a lot of people thinking, oh, it's just going to maybe go away or it just won't be as bad in the fall. Like, no, it's been raging for a while. especially once they saw the surges in like June or so, when we started seeing a lot of the states in the South and the West spike a lot. Like obviously here where we are in New York, in the tri-state area, it was primarily in March and April that shit hit the fan and it was just tons of coronavirus cases. But then when you didn't really see it go away as the summer months came on, you knew it was going to be a problem. At that point, they should have started coming up with contingency plans. Only now are we hearing that maybe the Big Ten and maybe the Pac-12 are considering, oh, maybe we'll play in like January. So why not in like June or so? Were you not thinking, all right, maybe not September, but let's maybe try to work on something for like November or something. January, it could be terrible. We could have the second wave.
Yo, right in the middle of it,
months.
dude.
Exactly. Like it doesn't make any sense what they plan. I respect the SEC and the other conferences for at least trying. I know the SEC and ACC really are. I haven't heard too much, honestly, about what the Big 12's plan potentially is, but I get why people are upset, why families of these players involved and these college athletes are upset that their kids aren't going to be on campus or aren't going to be able to play football. But at the same time, especially when campuses are shut down, it's clear that these kids are special, so to say, and make a ton of money that you try and play football. Like it's obvious that money is the motivating factor. Like I even said in one of our podcasts previously, this is one of the few times that in the professional sports that the greed actually benefits the fans, is because that's really why they're playing. It's not because, oh, they think it's so safe to go out there. It's because of all the dollars on the line. They're already losing money in some ways because they're not able to have fans in the stands. Granted, I'm not crying foul. They're still making a profit, but it's not the same profit that they're used to. And salary caps in some of those sports will go down next year as a result. But basically, these professional sports leagues are playing because they want to at least live up to some part of their TV contracts, make that money, get those ratings, and same thing for the players. They want to get paid too. If they don't play, they're not going to get paid. And speaking to Indiana, I'm upset that, yeah, they might not play a college football season. But at the same time, I don't want to risk the safety of these players. I think they should try and play a season in January or February. Ideally, all the leagues. I think it would be better if we have all the competition. We could have some sort of college football playoff. But that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. I think if say the SEC and ACC do play their seasons, it's just going to be a conference schedule like they've already released, and then maybe they have a championship game. And that's it. We're not going to have a national champion this year. I don't see that any way that happens. We've already seen plenty of top prospects for the upcoming draft opt out. Now, someone like Trevor Lawrence, who's the presumptive at the moment #1 pick, he's in the ACC, so he might play if they play in the fall. But, hey, if it gets pushed to spring, he'd be stupid to try and play. You get an injury, it would hurt his draft stock. He'd still get drafted high, but he would definitely forfeit plenty of millions and not be the #1 pick. You know, that's how it works.
Oh, absolutely, dude. And see, for me, I see three things that really stand out to me in terms of the college football front, the business side of it, the popularity, all that. The wide reaches that college football has on the not only the sports world, but the NFL, etc. I see three things that stand out. One, I wonder why we need the NCAA anymore. The NCAA has shown time and again, just like FIFA, that they cannot be counted on. They cannot be held accountable. And they are essentially an absentee landlord in that they have these series of rules that everyone has to follow. And God forbid you even slightly break the rules, which I get. You know, if you're going to break a rule, there are consequences. That's fine. But the NCAA, I'm not going to get too into it here, but the NCAA is a joke of an organization. When they put it on the universities to make the decisions and how they would handle COVID policies and testing and so on and so forth. They took that corporate route like the NFL did. The NFL put it on the teams. Major League Baseball put it on the teams and said, y'all figure this out. Y'all got the money. Y'all got the resources. We'll back you up if we need to. But you guys figure it out. Your team, your city, your fucking problem. We're playing baseball. Just make sure your players aren't pieces of shit and they follow the rules. And we'll be good. Other than that, do what you will. Have fans, don't have fans. Have crowd noise, don't have crowd noise. Put special rules in place. Don't do whatever you want. It's not our problem. It's on you. NCAA took the same route. That's where they fucked up. Because the NCAA wants all the money. They want all the control. They want all the accolades. Oh, all these student athletes graduating, how much money these universities are getting, all these deals that these conferences are making for television rights and broadcast stations and all this shit. But they want none of the responsibility. So after COVID-19, if I'm a university that's a part of this NCAA organization, why the fuck am I going to listen to anything that they have to say moving forward? If you're going to pull this bullshit in the 12th hour and say, oh, you know what? This is a pandemic, a global pandemic that affects literally every person on this earth. And businesses, schools, governments, hospitals, they're either shutting down or overwhelmed. People are losing jobs, homes, lives. But you know what? We're your governing body. But we're going to take a hands-off approach on this one. Y'all can figure it out. Oh, but God forbid your university takes that player out to dinner or pays for his mother, for his single mother to come to their home game, their senior day. God forbid you do that. Because if you do, you're going to lose scholarships. You're going to lose money. You're going to get fined. You're going to lose your ability to play in the postseason. The player's not going to be eligible. All this crazy shit's going to happen. God forbid you break our rules. But you know what? Corona, COVID-19, we're going to play football. Figure it the fuck out. All 300 universities, 400 universities in the NCAA playing football across Division 1, 2, 3, junior college. Figure it out. You guys will be fine. We'll be here if you need us.
And you want to know what's funny too is that technically the NCAA is deemed a nonprofit organization, which is an absolute joke because they generate so much revenue.
So much.
And the big thing is that there's obviously a clear lack of leadership. Anyone who doesn't follow sports, let us tell you now, and you can look it up. The NCAA, and we can also throw FIFA into that, have just absolute terrible leadership and are totally corrupt and totally messed up. There's complete lack of leadership. Yeah, they'll rake in all the money off these athletes, but yet, like you're talking about, if they get paid a dinner paid for them, they get suspended for a game, or they sell their jersey, it's a big deal, and they got to miss games. It's bullshit. It's a complete sham, complete joke. And the only thing that I'll give some fairness to, and it's very slight, is just the NCAA can't dictate to these universities just because they're organizing the athletics. Ultimately, these universities, if no students are on campus, I can't say, oh, the NCAA needs to make them play football. Right. But what I can say is that they can help when they know they're making so much money off these student athletes, particularly the football players and the basketball players. Months ago, they should have said, all right, yeah, COVID's hitting. Let's kind of outline different protocols that they can kind of go through to try to have a season, to try to get things started, to at least say, look, these are some of the things that would benefit you, would help you to keep players safe, assure their families that they'd be safe, whatever testing would need to be done,
Mm-hmm.
use some of all those revenues that you generate and put it back and give it back. If you're a nonprofit organization, put it back into your product and do that for them and say, look, this is what we're going to try to do. And maybe they should have been the ones saying, all right, we don't want to have all this travel. They should have been the ones saying, here's the idea. Now you don't have to do it. If you think it's not safe to play, don't do it. But the NCAA should have been the one saying, all right, here's what we'll do with the schedules. We'll have it be just all conference games, and then maybe we're going to stick to football to make it easy. But basically with football, you play all conference games, you go through X amount of tests all the time. You make sure that players stay in this certain area if possible on your university, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Universities would have to organize and get involved, of course, but help at least. Do something. Say something. Say something to help. Like, it seems like the NCAA has just been like, it's not my problem. I don't want to be bothered. Of course, like you said, when they make money, we'll get involved, we'll organize it, we'll set up everything. But when COVID hit, it's like they're nowhere to be found. Mark Emmert, the president, complete joke. It's awful.
Trash.
The NCAA could have done so much to at least give some guidance. They can't make them play, but they at least should have outlined some things that could have helped. Instead, just leave it up to the conferences. They'll figure it out. And now you have some conferences not playing, some conferences playing. It's going to be a joke of a season.
The 3 worst sports or entertainment organizations on the planet are FIFA, the NCAA, and EA Sports.
I knew you were going to say EA Sports because we already said NCAA and FIFA. I was like, oh, he's going to say EA. He's going to say
I had to take my fucking shot. Fuck him. All right? I had to take my shot. But anyway, so that's my first thought. My second thought on college football during COVID is these parents suing or threatening to sue, and these players putting these petitions out and all this shit, and the ACC, Trevor Lawrence, Fields for Ohio State, like pushing and threatening these colleges, like, oh, let's play football. Oh, they're safest playing football. Okay, cool. I'm going to avoid that part of the conversation because I don't want to discuss views or beliefs or anything like that. But hashtag only in America will you have parents threatening to sue educational institutions because their children can't play games. And it would be one thing if they canceled football and said, oh, well, if you played football, you don't have a scholarship. Sorry, figure it out. Because that's fucked up. But the fact that there's no football and the student athletes are not affected in terms of their scholarships or eligibility is a fair enough deal where if you're a parent, regardless of your personal, political, or whatever beliefs about COVID-19, you could say, okay, so my kid's a junior going into his junior year of college. And on one hand, he has legitimate professional athlete ability. On the other hand, they're my fucking child. And I don't want them to die or get sick, come home, get me or my parents sick, their grandparents sick, or their aunts or uncles or cousins, or someone who has a health issue, and they get sick and die. Okay, so you're balancing a very thin line. But I don't have any kids, but
that we know of.
Very good point. Very good point. But I don't have any children.
Says the guy who was talking about, impregnating the same girl there. But anyway, that's another story. Those were joking.
Semantics. We're neither here nor there. Okay?
Yeah. We'll edit that out, right?
That's what the post, edits are for. It's fine.
Yeah.
But no, so I don't have my own kids. So I can't say, oh, well, if my kid did this, then I would do this. Because I don't know. I don't. I don't know the feeling. I don't know what parents go through. I have no fucking clue what it means to value another life on that level, like your kid. From every parent that I know, even my closest friends, like that's some next level shit. So I don't know what that's like. However, I can guess with a sane mind, and this is a few beers in, like a sane mind, I can say like, okay, if I'm weighing like my kid's health between playing fucking football or basketball, it's like, okay, if my kid's an elite athlete and I think he's gonna make it to the pros, at least get drafted, like, okay, that's his career, that's their livelihood, like that's important. But then on the other hand, it's like, their health, their well-being, our well-being, our family's well-being, shit like that. Like it's a lot to weigh. But like, only in America would that shit happen where you can't play football. What? You can't tell me I can't play football. I'm gonna sue you. That's our right to play football. You have no right to tell me I can't do that shit. It's like, I get it. I get it. We have our rights. We do. And the Constitution protects them and all that good shit. But football ain't one of those rights, man. And I get it where like parents are passionate about their alums, their alumni of these universities, or their children are elite athletes at these universities and have an opportunity to benefit from this, whatever. But like, it's a bit much. It's a little extra, I feel, for parents to be threatening to sue universities because the Big Ten, or threatening to sue the Big Ten or whatever the fuck, because they canceled football, they canceled sports for the well-being of the student athletes. It's a little fucking weird. I don't know how I feel about that. And then the third thing, if there is anyone who's in the power of position to say, we're going to put these players in a bubble and this is how it's going to be, it's colleges, because they already have that power. Like if I applied to a college and as a kid coming out of high school and I wanted to live on campus, I don't have the choice of saying as a freshman, I don't have the choice of saying, oh, I'm going to live here. They're going to tell you, you're going to live in the freshman dorms.
Oh, exactly. I mean, a lot of colleges, yeah, you have to live in a dorm freshman year. I had to.
Yeah, this is the freshman dorm. Enjoy it. It's on campus. It's part of your tuition. This is where you're going. Oh, but I want to live here, off campus. That's a personal problem. You're going to pay for that on your own. But FYI, our college rules, they might even allow the freshmen to live off campus, period. That might even be negotiable. So if anyone has the opportunity to control a bubble and control the players and their movement, it's fucking colleges. These colleges and the NCAA fucked up because they could have put a bubble in place and said, hey, we're going to put football players in this dormitory. We're going to put baseball players in this dormitory. We're going to put bowlers here. We're going to put golfers here. And even if, like with the smaller sports like golf and bowling and swimming and whatever, if you have 5 to 10 people on the team, you can put them all in one building, but they're one building, same people, same staff, same students, no tomfoolery. If you're going to do the courses online anyway, number one, why do you need the college students to come back and live on campus? Number two, even if you brought everyone back, if shit's going to be online anyway, why wouldn't you have the wherewithal to say, oh yeah, all football players are going to be in this quad? It's not that fucking hard. You can literally do whatever you want and no one can or will say anything about it. No one's going to say, oh my God, you put all the female soccer players in the same dorm. How dare you? No one's going to fucking say that. Sports, like athlete parents, don't give a shit about stuff like that for the most part. Okay? They just care about their kid playing the sport. For the most part, is what it seems like. So they fucked up, man. They could have had a bubble scenario like the NBA, like NHL, where both the NHL and the NBA have zero, 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 zero positive tests since going in the bubble. Not a fucking coincidence, okay? But here comes baseball. This team shuts down for 2 weeks. This team shuts down for a week. This team cancels their games for the next 4 or 5 days because 2 players tested positive. It's a fucking disaster. And then to that end, to connect the NFL to NCAA, the NFL seeing how MLB has been just reamed by COVID, and then seeing how successful the NHL and the NBA bubbles have been, I think the NFL is absolutely ludicrous to not be balls deep at this point in several different contingency plans and backup plans to this whole, oh, we're going to play football this season as normal. Teams and players can go home and they're going to travel city to city, state to state. It doesn't matter what state or what city. We're not going to follow quarantine rules. We're going to do whatever the fuck we want. We're going to be fine because we're the NFL. No, absolutely not. Because as Bob said earlier, it's one thing to look at college kids and say, well, hey, the college kids went to some parties. They're not being responsible. You understand that to a degree, and you accept that as an adult to a degree because they're fucking kids. They're children. We've been there. We ain't that fucking far off. I can remember when I was 18, nothing hurt me. Nothing affected me. I could do whatever the hell I wanted. Nothing mattered. As long as I didn't fucking die or end up costing my mom thousands of dollars going to the hospital because I fucked myself up or didn't get kicked out of school, I could do whatever the fuck I want. And I did. But I wasn't dealing with a fucking global pandemic that's killing people and literally changing our lives as we know it at every single possible level. So if I'm the NFL and I'm seeing all this, I am shitting my fucking pants because it doesn't matter if you're an all-world elite athlete and one of the best 300, 400, 500 football players on the planet with no previous medical conditions and zero biological concerns that you're going to get some random like gluten allergy when you're 30 or some bullshit like that, and you're an elite physical specimen with 3% body fat and shit. It doesn't fucking matter. You could be that perfect physical specimen and still get COVID. Yeah, all baseball players aren't, Adonis gods, but they're still professional athletes and they're getting sick just like the rest of us. And it's fucking their team's schedules, potential, records, flow, streaks, whatever. It's fucking it all up. Because you go from maybe winning 4 or 5 games in a row to not playing for 2 weeks because 2 guys went to a casino and wanted to fucking play some slots and have some wings. Or some clown, or you lose a playoff series or something like that because some clown wanted to get wings at a strip club. Like, the NFL's gonna have to get their shit together. They're gonna have a real plan in place, and it goes beyond the playoffs. NCAA is in huge trouble. Bob, as you said, you alluded to this months ago, that the NCAA of all the factions was the biggest target for COVID to get totally fucked over, to not have basketball, to not have football, to not have anything, and just totally turn the college sports world upside down. You said it months ago. You were absolutely right, and it is coming to fruition, and it should scare all these different sports, all these boards, all these leaders, all these presidents of these universities. It should scare fucking everybody. and they need to get their shit together.
Yeah, well, you made a lot of great points. I only have a few things to add. It's just really it comes down to a few things, particularly with college sports right now. It comes down to a lack of leadership, lack of communication, a lack of critical thinking. We're just two guys doing a podcast, and we just spitballed some ideas that I think could work. Now, am I saying they're all the best ideas? No. I mean, there's obviously other factors we got to think of, but why were they not trying to plan this months ago? It just doesn't make any sense. And I like your idea of potentially putting in bubbles for different sports. And I'll even take it a step further, because even back then I was thinking, well, see, that's the problem and why it's a sham of them saying college student athletes, because we know football is so critical. Like, you can't just have the football players playing, but no one else is on campus. It looks like a complete joke. But what you could do is do what you're saying. You maybe create kind of bubbles for certain sports, but even beyond that, you know, these institutions have so much money. They're raking it in. You could have, even for different schools, like the kids going for doctorate school, the kids in psychology, the kids doing sociology, the kids doing whatever, like going to law school, going to the business school. You could do it so that even if it's not strictly like a bubble scenario, at least make parts of campus restricted to certain students and make only certain students have access to particular buildings. I don't see why, when you have so many resources at your disposal, and it was over a course of a few months. We know the college semesters usually end, the last semester, the spring semester, usually ends late April, early May. And that's right around when, COVID had already hit the U.S., but they had months. They had 3 months of summer to try to think of some kind of plans here. And it seems like they just sat on their hands and hoped that things would work itself out. Now, I'm sure maybe some universities did have some plans, but the overall feeling you get is, whether it's the NCAA or the universities themselves or the conferences, if you want to take it to that with college sports, they just didn't think. They didn't honestly come up with different plans for it to potentially work out. And now we're sitting here having some conferences play in a few weeks, others saying we might not have a season at all, others thinking, oh, well, maybe we'll play in January. It's just a complete disaster through and through. It's really unfortunate, especially for these kids who really get only a very limited amount of time to do this. Your college lifespan is usually only 4, maybe 5 years. And the only good thing the NCAA has come out with is that they granted extra year of eligibility to the spring sports students, and they're going to do the same for these fall sports students.
Yep.
But still,
they're going to have to do the same for the winter.
Yeah, they're going to exactly. They're going to wind up doing the same for the winter. I know Coach K of Duke recently came out saying college basketball really can't afford to have another year without a tournament. Supposedly they lost potentially $375 million not having a tournament this past March, and it's just the kids are really the ones getting screwed in all of this, and it's just really unfortunate. I'm sad about it, and they really need to start coming up with plans more quickly and get people involved. There's a lot of people at these universities smarter than us that certainly have the resources and the wherewithal and the budgets to try to come up with some plans. And we outlined some just ideas in the last 20 minutes of what they can do. I just don't get why you can't get people to sit in a room and figure this out. It's just a damn shame. I hope it doesn't happen to the NFL getting to that. I know you touched on the NFL a little bit, and they really should come up with some kind of bubble scenario.
They have to.
And do it. They can do it regionally, and they can say, certain guys, already I know I'm watching Hard Knocks, and they're letting some, like, I think the Chargers, I don't know if the Rams are doing it too. It might be both LA Chargers and LA Rams. But yeah, like the veterans get to mostly go home to their families and whatnot, but they have the rookies staying in the team hotel. I don't see why you can't do that and maybe make it regionally based. I believe on our last podcast we discussed it, where I was saying, put one in 4 different regions. You have 8 teams each, and maybe you put those in place. Now, I think the NFL is hoping that, granted, it may turn out to be foolish, but at least for them, they're able to test everyone constantly. I don't know if you can do that on a college campus because, again, it's a slippery slope to say, oh, well, the athletes, particularly the football players, get to have all these tests. But, yeah, we're not going to test. I don't think they want to test, even though they should, 30,000 kids every day when they have all that money. So I get why it is maybe a lot more difficult for those sports. And it's not, like these athletes are making millions of dollars like the pros are. So you expect when you're making, hundreds of thousands, even if you're a rookie, or even the veterans who obviously make millions of dollars, to be somewhat responsible. But I do worry about the NFL because they should have more contingency plans. I do think they tried to do that with the schedule. They made it so that they can adjust games in a certain way and not have too many, like, say, division games early. They have it kind of balanced so that they can maneuver if they need to. But I really hope that they are thinking, you know what, if shit hits the fan, we can maybe do it so that we do it regionally and have these teams just play between, say, the East divisions and the West and whatnot,
Right.
and just test guys as often as possible. I think that's their hope, is that because we're testing these guys every day, and we hired the laboratory that I think the NBA did. They're hoping that, at least by testing them constantly, that they'll avoid these problems. It'll remain to be seen if that'll happen, but I certainly think we're going to see positive tests just like we have in MLB.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll be really upset when, say, Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady gets it and they miss 2 weeks and they miss a prime time game.
Yep.
NFL is going to be pissed off when that happens, and they'll have no one to blame but themselves.
They won't. And we'll see what happens if/when it comes to that. But enough about college football and all that stuff. I do want to touch on something real quick, and I want to jump into soccer, actually. Football. It's something that we don't normally talk about on the show. Bob's not the biggest football fan that I know. He's not, and that's fine. That's totally normal, as many Americans. It's just not a thing here, and I get it. It can be boring if you don't appreciate the sport. A 1-0 game to someone who doesn't like soccer sounds like a damn boring way to spend a couple of hours of your afternoon. But
I think the ties are really what get to me.
The ties do suck. But to me, a 1-0 game could be something real fucking special, and it depends on what goes on during the game. But anyway, that being said, I'm a huge soccer fan, and I do have to thank our friend Sabby, rest in peace, that he's the one who got me into soccer. It started with FIFA, where in Madden, we'd play Madden, and I would just do whatever I wanted to him. I would have my way with him in Madden. I could literally do whatever I wanted, and I would blow him out every game. I could tell him what I was going to do to him, and then I would do it. And it got to the point where it was not only partially comical, but for him, it wasn't fun anymore. So he got me into FIFA, probably like 10 years ago at this point. He got me into FIFA because he loves soccer. He was Colombian and Ecuadorian. So South America is huge on soccer. So he got me into it. And I would say ever since probably like 2009 maybe is when I first, maybe 2008 is when I first started getting into soccer really, like I do into like football here in America, American football. But there's some, just to give you some background on that, there's some special shit going on in the world of soccer right now. And it's worth talking about because stuff like this doesn't happen often. And I'm talking about Barcelona. Barcelona recently, for the lack of a better term, had their shit pushed in. They played Bayern Munich in the Champions League, and they got embarrassed to the tune of 8-2. A game that saw actually one of the players that they sent to Bayern on a loan. They still own his rights. He's still Barcelona, player, but they loaned him out because they don't need him. Philippe Coutinho actually substituted into that game, into the Champions League game, And I think he scored 2 goals and assisted on another goal, which is a complete embarrassment. Not only because you allowed a substitute to come on and score and get an assist, but he's your player and he did it to your team. So it's a kind of like a double-edged slap in the face. But Barcelona is not used to losing like that. They're not used to losing really at all. They kind of own Spain for the most part, and even when they don't win La Liga championships, when it comes to the Champions League, they're strong contenders year in and year out. But they got embarrassed. They got embarrassed by a very tactical, very good Bayern Munich team that finds themselves in the finals, which will be coming up the next few days. Sunday, I believe, is the game. And they're playing PSG. Now, PSG has Neymar. Neymar came from Barcelona. And this is Neymar's first Champions League as the guy. Whereas in Barcelona, it was Messi's team. But Neymar is still a legitimate top 3 to 5 player in the world when he's healthy. So this is the big deal. So it's PSG versus Bayern for the Champions League final, the Champions League championship. And that's a huge fucking deal. That's a huge deal. Bayern is on the cusp of a treble, meaning they're going to win 3 championships pretty much, the Champions League, the Bundesliga, and another title all in one season. The treble is very highly sought after. It is not commonly won. Very, very, very few teams win their division or their the Champions League, La Liga, whatever. They win their division, they win the Champions League, and they win another title, a major title. So for them, winning the treble is a big thing. But I'm not talking about the Champions League final. I do want to focus on Barcelona because the reason I'm bringing up soccer and the reason I'm talking about Barcelona is because Bob doesn't look too thrilled. I'm sorry, Bob. But it's because Messi is involved. And it's more than Barcelona losing this game in the Champions League, missing the opportunity to play for the Champions League final, which again is a huge prestigious opportunity for these clubs. But it's more than that for Barca because they've been here before in that they didn't win La Liga. Real did. They're not going to win a Champions League title. And they have been, at least to Barcelona's status and expectations, not quite right. And that's a problem because when this sort of stuff happens where they don't have a chance to win the Champions League title or they don't win La Liga, but it kind of happens all in the same season, that doesn't happen often. But when it does, it kind of ushers in a little bit of a rebuild of sorts. And that's a problem because Messi stayed for the last rebuild, but he's had like contract negotiations coming up and ongoing seemingly every offseason the last couple of years. And he's not really been interested in accepting a new deal from Barcelona, which is making a lot of people question, is Messi arguably the GOAT, arguably the best player in the world? Michael Jordan what Michael Jordan was to basketball, what Tom Brady is to football, Michael Phelps, Tiger Woods,
But has he surpassed Pele?
That's up for debate, which is one of the great debates of all time, which is why he is such a legend. The fact that you can debate something like that is fucking amazing. And Messi is amazing. Everyone knows what Messi does. That's not the question. We're not going to talk about that. But why is it relevant? Well, you know how Tom Brady left the Patriots and everyone was like, oh, is he going to go? Is he going to stay? What's the percentages of him leaving? Where could he go? Where's he going to fit? You're like, oh my God, would he dare go to Indianapolis? No, they're New England's rivals. Would he go to Carolina because they're getting rid of Cam Newton? Is he going to go there? Is he going to go here? Oh my God, where's Tom Brady, the GOAT, the legend? Fucking, where's he going? That was a huge conversation last season, all off season till he decided to go to Tampa. Like, that was the conversation, and understandably so. We're talking about a guy who spent his whole fucking career at this place, who won championships, who became the GOAT, who did legendary things that we're going to talk about to our kids, and so on and so forth. That's going to be talked about for decades on. Messi is on that level, but he might be leaving Barcelona. And this is the club that he signed with as a teenager. He went through their system. He got promoted as a teenager. He's been there in that club one way or another for 20 years. 20 years. And that's Tom Brady status. Tom Brady's been in the New England organization for 20 years. Like, that's a thing. This is important. This is legitimate. This is something to talk about. But the sheer conversation of Messi leaving isn't new, because we've been talking about this for a couple of years now. It's been one of those unspoken things when it was him or Neymar. Oh, who would leave? They're not going to coexist. Neymar left. It wasn't a conversation. Neymar's not Messi. He's great, but he ain't Messi. It's very, very simple. You're good. You're great. You're not a GOAT. And that's okay. That you're not the GOAT. That's fine. That's okay. We're not going to hold it against you. Neymar, you're still a Hall of Fame. You're still a legend. But you're fucking out. You're picking between A and B, it's going to be A. And that's cool. No one questioned them. They didn't skip a beat. Cool. But here we are, another offseason, and now we're talking about Messi leaving. And it is as real as it's ever been. They hired a new manager in Coleman, who was a part of the team in the past, and he's got managerial history before, some success, nothing special, but it very much leaves a lot to be desired. So one of the biggest storylines in sports, and maybe in soccer, at least in the last decade, and that includes Ronaldo leaving Real and going to Juventus. That was like earth-shattering. That was some epic-ass shit. We're talking about the GOAT potentially, and Barcelona was asking for $700 million. I don't know if that, 700 million euro, but whatever it is, 700 million is a lot, and that would be by far the most money that any player's ever transferred for. Considering Neymar transferred for a little over 200 million from Barcelona to PSG, 700 million will never be touched again as long as we live. Okay?
Yeah, definitely during our lifetime, that's for sure.
As long as we live, we will never see that touched or even conversed about again with anyone. Okay? That's how significant this is. We're talking about a guy who can single-handedly carry a team, at least scoring-wise, on his girth, drop 40 goals in a season in 30 contests and not think anything of it. Drop 30 goals, 20 assists, call it a fucking day, okay? But there's questions as to where he goes. Does he leave? If he does, where's he going to go? Would he go to Manchester City, which has been one of the biggest rumors in the last couple of years, which, spoiler alert, I fucking hate because I'm a Man United fan. But, dude, they got the money. They got they got it all for him. They could win immediately with him. They would be immediately the best club on the planet if they added Messi. And of all the clubs in the world that can afford him, they're one of them. But is it Man City? Would he go to PSG? Would he go to one of these other like mammoth clubs? Would he go to Argentina for a spell? Would he come to America in MLS and do something special? Play for Beckham's team down there, I think in Miami, or something special. There's options for Messi. The options are limitless. But this is a huge storyline, and I think it's one that it's worth covering over the course of the next few months, because the transfer window is I don't know if it's open or if it's going to open, because normally the summertime is the open transfer window where players can be bought from other teams, go to new teams, or be loaned out from team A to team B for 1 year or 2 years or whatever the case may be. But the transfer window is normally from like June, July until like August, September, give or take, depending on the league. But COVID fucked everything up. So I'm not sure if we're in the transfer window or if it's coming close. I'm sure it varies league by league, from La Liga to the Premier League to Bundesliga, whatever the case. But it is something that's worth talking about, worth something following, and it could be huge.
Now, obviously, I don't know a lot about soccer, but I see some of the rumors, particularly just with like the stars, like the Messis, the Ronaldos, etc. My real quick question to wrap up the soccer part of this is, which do you think is more likely, that him and Ronaldo team up in Barcelona, or Messi leaves in this offseason?
Messi leaves. I know Juventus had been talking about straightening out their books, and Ronaldo was a big purchase, but they also added a few other players in the last offseason or two, that the money is kind of coming back to haunt them a little bit in terms of fair play, because they want to add more players. So according to FIFA fair play, if you're going to spend a certain amount, you got to give up a certain amount. So if I'm going to spend 300 million euro acquiring players, then I got to give up X amount to balance things out. So let's say if I bring in 300 million euro worth of talent, I got to give out 200 million euro worth of talent, for example. So I think there's 0% chance that Messi and Ronaldo link up at Barca. If that happens, God help us.
Yeah, it seems like pie in the sky. It seemed like a crazy rumor, but they did apparently offer him potentially to Barcelona.
They did offer him to Barcelona because they want to get either him or Dybala, a young goal-scoring GOAT, off their books. Both of them had high transfer costs. They both have high salaries, and understandably so. Ronaldo is maybe the second or third best player on the planet at this point behind Messi. So understandable, but I think it's 0% chance that Messi and Ronaldo play at Barca. I think it's more likely that Messi leaves Barcelona. Now, that being said, I know Barcelona's new manager, Ronald Koeman, wants to keep him on the team. They want to build around him. I know a majority of the board, it's been reported, at least on ESPN, that they hope to persuade to keep him there. But the other half of the board thinks, listen, if he doesn't want to be here, he may be our pride and joy. He may be our Derek Jeter. We brought him up through our system. He became a legend and a Hall of Famer with us. Definition of an era type player. But if he doesn't want to be here, he doesn't want to be here. They don't want to hold him hostage. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see what happens. I know none of my teams, Man United or Bayern Munich, are in the running to get him. And I wouldn't expect it because, honestly, I don't see Messi fitting in the Premier League because they play some hard football and the referees don't call shit. They let the boys play. I love Premier League football. It's rough. It's rugged for soccer terms. And the refs don't call shit. So at least that's what I noticed when I watch Man United games. So I don't think he'll fit in the Premier League. I don't think he fits in England, whereas like Ronaldo is big, he is strong, he fits. That's why he played so well in Man United as a youth, because he fit. He belongs. He's got the stature, he's got the strength, he's got it. Messi is a little smaller, okay? He's more finesse, he's not strength. And that's okay because he has the best left foot in history. So that's fine. But he doesn't I don't think he belongs in the Premier League. And honestly, I think he has to stay in La Liga or come to the MLS, or because I don't think he belongs in the Bundesliga either. Bundesliga's got some big defenders, and they may not be as quick and as fast as him or as some of the defenders in La Liga, but they are big and they are strong, and they might bully him around. And we saw Bayern bully Messi. Didn't do shit. Messi didn't do a goddamn thing in that game. Nothing. They neutralized Messi. They handled the box. They did their work in the midfield. Bayern absolutely dominated. You know what Germany did to Brazil when we were watching in the World Cup?
Oh, yes.
How astounded we were that the Brazilian skill just didn't match up. They had the speed. They had the skill. They had the talent. They had the names. They had the youth. They had the scoring ability. They seemingly had it fucking all. They didn't have the Germans' tact. They didn't have the German strength. They couldn't win headers. And the goalkeeping was some next level shit. And Germany had it all going against Brazil that day. Bayern against Barcelona. It wasn't a matter of a good game, but one team being better than the other. It was Barcelona got completely and utterly dominated from start to finish. And yeah, it was 1-1 early. First Bayern scored, then Barca tied it up, and then Bayern broke the tie and ran away with it. But even though it was tied, the game from that point on, the game wasn't close ever again, and it was very, very clear. And I don't think Messi would fit well in the Bundesliga. I mean, I know we see what Lewandowski is doing out there for scoring 50 goals in 30-something contests for Bayern between the Bundesliga and the Champions League and whatever. But Lewandowski's big, and strong, girthy, and he can handle those hard tackles, and he can handle those guys trying to push him off the ball, and he can jump for those headers, and he is a legitimate, strong striker. Whereas Messi is smaller. He is more finesse. He is more, outside the box kind of, razzle-dazzle type moves. But I don't want to take away from Messi. He's still a goddamn legend and maybe the best player of all time. But his game at his age, I don't think is going to fit in the Premier League or the Bundesliga or anything like that. So it'll be interesting to see where his story goes. It'll be interesting to see what Barca does. And we will definitely be tracking that on our shows as the summer comes to an end and as the fall comes ablazing.
I love it. We don't get to talk a lot about soccer. And
We don't.
We just did. I mean, granted, I didn't talk a lot about soccer, but I don't belong in that conversation anyway. So I'll let you go on your own little rant. I don't have much to add, obviously, with soccer. The only thing I want to add to wrap it all up is maybe touch on hockey real quick.
Okay.
And granted, we tend to talk about the Yankees, the Mets, Knicks, and all the local teams to us, primarily because our support system and the people that listen are primarily in this tri-state area where we are. So I got to start off with the hockey, just congratulating the New York Islanders on making it to the second round. Really almost like the third round of the playoffs, because they had that initial round to seed the teams. They had a round robin for the top 4 seeds, and they beat the Panthers in 5 games rather. And now they just beat the Washington Capitals in 5 games, and Alex Ovechkin. They've been very impressive during this NHL restart in their bubble scenario. So right now, all the Eastern teams are essentially in a bubble in Toronto, while the Western teams are in their own bubble in Edmonton. And right now, we finally have it's set for the semifinals of each conference. So even though we're both Devils fans, I don't have any problem with the Islanders. The Rangers are the real rival. I can't even remember a year where the Devils and Islanders both made the playoffs. And I don't think they played a playoff series since like before I was born. So I really don't have any hate or animosity toward them. Whereas I do toward some of the teams still remaining in the East, like Boston and Philadelphia.
Yeah, Boston can suck it.
Yeah, Boston, all their sports teams can totally suck it. But right now the field is set, and we will have a new Stanley Cup champion this year. As just a few moments ago went final, the St. Louis Blues lost to the Vancouver Canucks. So there will be a new Stanley Cup champion this year. And the field is set. Essentially the Elite Eight, to borrow an NCAA term, is set for the hockey Stanley Cup playoffs. The New York Islanders will play the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Tampa Bay Lightning will face the Boston Bruins on the eastern side. And on the western side, the Vegas Golden Knights will play the Vancouver Canucks, who just beat the defending champion Blues. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, the Colorado Avalanche will play the Dallas Stars. So that field is set. Good luck to all of them. I only hate Boston and Philly, so as long as it's any other team besides those two, I'll be fine. And no surprise here, our NHL picks last year were trash. They were trash again this year. Dan had Pittsburgh and Calgary in the finals. Pittsburgh got bounced in the opening rounds of the restart. Calgary just got eliminated yesterday. I actually do have one team remaining. I had Vegas winning it all. So if I was going to go that route, hopefully they win it all. But I wouldn't certainly mind if any of those other 5 teams I touched on that aren't Boston or Philly were to win it. I had the Maple Leafs facing them in the finals. The Maple Leafs got eliminated in the last round.
What were the teams besides Boston and Philly and the Knights?
So the Islanders are going to play the Flyers.
Islanders, yeah.
And the other Eastern Conference matchup is going to be the Lightning and the Bruins. Lightning. On the west side, it's going to be Vegas Golden Knights playing the Vancouver Canucks. And then the Colorado Avalanche are going to play the Dallas Stars.
Dallas. Okay. What were the East teams again besides the Islanders, the Bruins, and the Flyers?
The Lightning. Let's
go Lightning.
There's only 4 teams left on each side, and actually looking at it, the only franchise there that has never won a cup, or actually there's 2. The 2 that haven't ever won a cup are Vegas and Vancouver. They happen to wind up playing each other. Usually I root for teams, if my team ain't in it, I kind of pull for teams that have never won it before. So I certainly wouldn't mind if Vegas or Vancouver were to win it. But locally, I have no problem with the Islanders, so I do hope they make a deeper run. They've already made a pretty deep run, making it to the conference semis. But good luck against the Flyers. F Philadelphia.
And since my predictions are completely butthole, I'm going to root for the Lightning. Hopefully they don't get eliminated this time around and at least make it to the next round.
Well, they avenged last year when I had them winning the cup. I think you might have had them in the finals. And last year they got swept by the Columbus Blue Jackets.
The first round.
That was the big shock. They were, the Blue Jackets were the lowest seed and essentially by points.
Yeah.
And the Lightning were the top seed, and then they lost, got swept. But they avenged that. They beat the Blue Jackets a couple days ago and won, I think, in 5 games. So Lightning avenged that disappointing loss from last year, and they head to the semifinals.
Here we go. So hockey playoffs progress. NBA playoffs progress. We'll see what goes on with college football. We'll see what goes on in the NFL. We'll see what happens elsewhere in the sports world. But my name is Dan Kornhauser.
And I am Bobby Hunt.
Thank you guys for tuning in. And be sure to give us a follow on Instagram and on Twitter. Bob, what's the handle?
That handle would be DB Talking Sports. D as in Dan, B as in Bob. And certainly find us on any major podcast platform. You can just Google search Dan and Bob Talking Sports. And, of course, we have the YouTube videos as we've been doing Zoom for a while now. And we would love you to check out our page. Made it easy, too. If you go on YouTube, DB Talking Sports, subscribe, like us, do it on the podcast sites, too, and give us any and all feedback. We really appreciate it all.
I couldn't have said it better myself. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys later.